These are the rhythms that we've been working on in class. Counting the counts for quarter notes, half notes, sets of 2 eighth notes, also quarter rests and half rests. Our quarter notes and quarter rests each take up 1 count, or they gobble up 1 count. Our half notes and half rests take up 2 counts. The eighth notes, they gobble up half a count each, and the sets of 2, of course, add up to 1 count. Each of these measures has 4 counts in it. It's in 4/4 time. We have to find the names of all 4 counts. We've got to find where they all land. We're always going to start on count 1. Every time we go to a new measure, it's always count 1. This quarter note is going to eat up all of count 1. This is what we're looking for. This half note eats up the count that it lands on and the following count. This one lands on count 2. And it's also going to play through count 3 of this measure. The way I like to write those is the next note goes underneath. 2, 3, both taken up by that half note. That only leaves us with count 4. These 2 eighth notes live on count 4. And the rule for eighth notes is the first one gets the name of the count that it lands on. In this case, it's 4. The second one on the back half of the count, we call it and. And a shorthand that I like to use for and is the plus sign. It's a little bit easier to draw than an ampersand or to write A-N-D, although those would both be correct if we had those on there. This is what this first measure should look like. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've hit our measure line. You can always tell in 4/4 we're never going to get to count 5, and we're never going to stop before we get all of count 4 covered. All 4 of those counts are covered. This is the back half of count 4 on the and. This is a new measure right here, so we're always going to start back over at 1. Because of the rule for eighth notes, first one gets the name of the count that it lands on. Second one gets the and. Quarter note hits on count 2. Count 2 is covered. This is a quarter rest. Quarter rest takes up the same amount of time as a quarter note, except we are silent during that time. We still have to count that time, however, so we still need to know that that quarter rest lands on count 3, and the way we remind ourselves that that is a rest is I like to put my count in parentheses. A parenthetical reminds us when we're going through that we need to count that time silently, but not say it out loud. And finally, just like the last measure, count 4 and has eighth notes living on it. So we have count 4 and the and of 4 covered. The next measure has nothing but a half note and a half rest in it. There is nothing else in that measure. Each one of these is going to take up 2 counts of the 4. This half note is going to take up count 1 and count 2. The half rest is going to take up count 3 and count 4. We're going to remind ourselves that it is a rest with parentheses, just like the quarter rest, except that parentheses will be over the 3 and the 4 underneath. Last measure on the first line. 1 for the quarter note. 2 and is covered by the eighth notes. And this half note gobbles up the last 2 counts of the measure, 3 and 4. Okay, take a look at the next line. I'm going to step out of the screen, take a look at the next line, and see what those measures look like. I'll be back with the answers in just a minute. Have you got them? Good. Let's go through the second line. 1, 2, 3 on the half note, 4 in parentheses. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, all covered. This measure starts with a half rest, 1, 2 in parentheses, 3, 4 and. All covered there. Last measure, 1. Half rest in the middle of the measure is 2, 3, and it ends with 4 and. If this is what you had, you were absolutely correct. This is really good practice for counting all of these different notes and rests. Later this year, we're going to get into even more. I'll leave you with the image of the notes so you can take some notes, double check your answers, and I will see you next time.